Hello, my name is Troy Cabida, and I'm here to read some poems from my debut pamphlet called War Dove. It came out on the 2nd of May 2020 with Badberry Press, and I'm very excited to have my poems out in the world for the first time in a book all dedicated to my work, and I'd like to share some poems with you today. Let's start off with this poem. Ladlad. From Tagalog, unfolded, spreading out on a surface to expose. And the nearest translation you're given is sharp. Translates to you stretching out of yourself, your wrists bending at the sides of a box struggling to contain you. Translates to you falling from somewhere high, reminder that you are on polished quartz. Your sense of man cracked for wanting man, as if to say, you deserve all that is twisting your heart, all that is crushing your torso. So ladlad is a Tagalog word which translates to exposing yourself, to stretching out and opening a map. But in, I guess, colloquial terms, ladlad is also used to translate coming out of the closet. And for a lot of queer people, members of the LGBTQ community in the Philippines, that word is often has elements of it's often quite detrimental to someone's, I guess, image, because to come out in a way that's kind of forceful and physical and often harmful isn't always the best experience. And the main theme of the pamphlet deals with coming out of the closet and what that's like for someone who has never done it before, what it feels like to go through the tectonic plate when they're shifting, both in here and outside of the world. And that means like how your relationships are changing, both with other people and yourself, and what that means. And I'm grateful to be able to share that experience through an art form which I'm very, very happy to be a part of. I read about 3 more poems. This next poem is after, I guess, the first few experiences I've had from people after coming out of the closet. Some people found it funny, some people found it not so funny, but yes. This is called Makeup and Heels and Reese King. If the library manager assigns you the LGBTQ plus shelf because you have specialist knowledge, it's not your fault. If they ask you for your thoughts on makeup and heels and Reese King, it's not your fault, though you'll secretly Google Reese King afterwards. If they ask you for your pangalan sa gabi, your name at night, the name you call yourself when they're not around to remember and compare, it's not your fault. If they flash you and then retort, please, it was just a joke, don't think of it that way, it's not your fault. If the added weight dumped into your backpack is too heavy for their shoulders to carry, it's not your fault. If you can't see past all your smog, you just can't see right now, it's not your fault. Thank you. Yeah, Reese King is a famous model on Instagram. He's really cool. And that was probably the funniest reaction I've ever gotten. It's like, okay, I'm kind of bearing my soul out to you, but you're asking me to go on Instagram right now? That's so funny. Right, more poems. This next poem is one of the last poems that came out of the last poem that I added into the manuscript, and I didn't know how to include it, but when my editor found out about it, she was very excited. So, Interlude Calico. A male calico cat sits inside a room full of dogs. Easily he sees through their hunger, their boisterous and barrier. He wants to let them know, but the room's already losing its sobriety, so instead he paws his way out, feels the needles gnawing at the bent leg dissolve like bubbles. Outside, he looks to the sky for a fast wind to catch more of the citrus sunshine clinging onto a fading summer, drops to the ground, any leftover stings like balls of quartz, firming the first bounce, the eventual shatter. That poem is also inspired by a small Korean band you may have heard of. It's called BTS, after the song Serendipity, which everyone should check out. I think it's an amazing song. It has a cat in it, which is great. I'll do... Okay, so this next poem, I wrote it when I went home to the Philippines last year. And I think it's quite timely that I read it because I'm kind of homesick right now, especially because of things that are happening these days. A lot of people just want to be with their loved ones. And yeah, I wrote this poem last year. It's called Kalatagan, 2019. The kids are already laughing by the shores, giddy to pick the best starfish. But I'm still outside reception, standing in front of a small wishing pond where white Mother Mary looks down on brown and brass coins, holding wishes she'll decide when to play into reality. 3 turtles are balancing on top of one another on a chunk of cement peeping from the water. A 4th is a little away to the left, hiding from Mary's blessings, as if saying, "No. I'm not ready for your light yet. Let me soak a little longer, take up a form of healing with the floating rust and petals, searching for something that might still be useful." So Calatagan is a place in a part of the Philippines called Batangas, and they have lovely beaches. They're by the seaside, and we stayed in a nice little cottage there for a weekend. So I'll read the last 2 poems. This next poem is very dear to my heart because a lot of my friends in the poetry community have been a part of it. Not only has it been edited by friends in the community, I also managed to record it, and another friend of mine called Gabriel Jones, who goes under the name of Bumpkin, has produced a beat to go with it. So if you're interested, check it out online. I think I'm now a recording artist. We'll see. But this poem is titled "In Conversation with Past Troy." I have run around with your grief like a stone in my pocket, piercing a denim thigh to remind me that it exists, that as long as the body is moving, the heart will follow. Now, this technique will make you short-circuit, make you spill and slip into poems and empty bottles and angry good morning texts on days you don't come home. You will discover people's reaction to danger. You will lose the heart-to-hearts, the arguments about aliens, the random road trips and texts for beer. You will learn to heal wounds by kissing, learn that kisses don't always heal. You will talk to your dad more, check in with your mom more. You will apologize with more of your chest and then understand that you have a chest and legs and dick and hands all itching for progress. You will swallow pride until it no longer stings. Your skeleton will toughen, grow muscle from the bone upwards, gathering strength to start cleaning the city. Thank you. For the last poem, I'd like to read a short poem. It's called Hawk and Dove. Your favorite story was when I tried to punch you with a hand boxed like a rock, only to see it crack open on impact. Fist bouncing from chest, feather meeting concrete. My favorite stories were quiet ones that slipped through your teeth. The way I caught flickers of your eyes from mine to the ground, the parts of you that needed defining, and how I once tried. Thank you very much. My name is Troy Cabida, and I read poems from my debut pamphlet called War Dove, which is out now through Bad Betty Press. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, and I hope you enjoyed this performance. And So here today with me is Troy Cabida. Hello, Troy.
Hello, how are you?
All right, thank you very
Good
much.
to be
Nice
here.
to having you with me. And I must say, really enjoyed your poetry reading, and
Thank
congratulations on your first debut poetry collection being
thank
published. How is
you.
it to feel like, oh look, it's my book. Actually, you can buy it.
Yeah, no, it feels like I was thinking about this earlier, and I was thinking my career actually has like a concrete direction now. Well, of course, it always has been. People always tell me
Goals.
it always has been, but for me, like I feel like I'm validated a little bit in my own little world of doubt and insecurities. No, you actually have a book now. Like you can actually exhale a little bit, and I love it because yeah, it's a real thing now. I can hold it, and it's like it's out in the world. People get to own it now. It becomes theirs as well, and we can strike conversation like we're having now, and it's always very fascinating to me.
And it came out in May during the lockdown. How
Did
hard was it then for you to sort of like not be able to? You haven't seen it anywhere in the shops yet, have you?
Not yet, no. So we were originally planning to release it in March 2020, but we eventually moved it to May because of the venue that we were gonna have to actually release it. I released it in conjunction with another poet in the same publishing house called Bad Betty Press, and I shared the launch with Gabriel Acamo and his debut pamphlet called At the Speed of Dark. And we were actually going to have the launch at the Bush Theater on the 2nd of May, but because of the lockdown, we had to do online. And it had its pros and cons because, you get to stay at your house. And,
Always proud.
well, I think the entire experience was very surprising to me because even though I did practically all of my marketing online, like through shows like this, I still managed to sell it. People still talked about it, and I did the whole marketing thing thinking no one's gonna care because the lockdown is definitely much more important. It's something that's people needed to focus on, but yeah, people still bought copies, still messaged me, still read it, and it warms my heart.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Oh, it's well worth it.
it
So can I
is.
just ask, how did it happen? How do you get your poetry published? Did you approach them or did they approach you? How does it work in the poetry world?
Different ways. There's a lot of literary journals and websites where you can submit poems during their submissions roll, and then they submit it in their issues, monthly issues. For Bad Betty Press, there are a small indie press publishing pamphlets and collections. And back in, I believe it was November 2018, they released like a submissions roll for pamphlets, for specifically for debut pamphlets, so that new poets like me could get the ball rolling. And thankfully, I sent off my very first manuscript. That was the very first time I sent it, and they actually accepted it. They sent me the acceptance letter around March 2019, and I replied to them, "Yes, I will take it. Of course, I'll take it. Thank you." And they replied to me around June, and by that point, I thought maybe they canceled it. Maybe they didn't want it anymore. But they were just like, "No, we were just busy with emails. I'm so sorry." But yeah, it's just a matter of knowing which publishing houses you know, um, and knowing the kind of stuff they put out and if it's matching with what you write as well.
But
Yeah.
do you think it's being a published poet is a bit easier these days when you've got those small presses that are actually targeting the debut poets with the pamphlets and opportunities like that?
I think so. I think it's definitely a different landscape now. It's no longer the way it used to be. Definitely when I was growing up, and before, it was just a different monster. And when I was younger, I thought to myself, I was in school thinking maybe I should write something, maybe I should be a poet. But because I would go and Google, how do you publish poetry? And it was just, I didn't understand the jargon, I didn't understand the words that they were using. And but then again, the cons were different then and the cons are different now. I think the whole, you still need to know contacts, and you still need to know people within the industry in order to publish, still matters, and it's still very relevant, even though there's a lot of more inclusive and approachable presses.
So do you think the poetry itself is more inclusive and more, I don't know, is it more inclusive and more diverse
I
these
think so.
days?
I think we're definitely touching on more things and more topics with much open arms than other mediums, I guess. But I can't say that much. But from my experience in poetry, there's much more openness and less cynicism, I guess. There's more experiment. You can experiment more, I think. And sometimes it drowns me a little bit because I like to stay in my box. I don't like to play around too much with what I have, but I like to have the opportunity. Yeah.
What is your box? Do you mean like sort of the type of poetry you write, or how is it presented?
Kind of. The poetry scene right now, especially the one I am a part of, there's a lot of cross arts happening. So poetry with dance, poetry with music, poetry with theater, poetry with visual arts. And I really love all of them. And sometimes it's easy to feel pressure that you have to take part in that in order to feel relevant or have your work easier to be received by the audience. But it took me a while to realize that actually I'm more of a publishing books kind of poet, and I can learn from those things, but I don't have to be a part of those things.
But do you think it's a more diversity and instead of like a in who the poets are as well as who the poetry is for as well?
I think so. I think especially in London, there's definitely much more diversity. I can't say for the rest of the poetry community across the world because it's different. I'm not familiar with them, but there's definitely much more, I guess, room for circles to grow, especially because I'm a part of a poetry collective called Poetry in Shah, where we produce poetry nights specifically for Muslim and Black and people of color as well. That was our main focus, and that was a very organic decision for us to make, because when we were making poetry nights back in 2017, we were just contacting our friends who turned out to be Black, people of color, and queer people, and all those things. And then people and audience members started coming to us every month because of the sort of the poets that we were having, and we were giving them the spotlight that they deserve. So yeah, I think poetry has more of an open arms when it comes to that.
So if you're a poem, if you I don't know, you publish poet, you are the book poet. You're the one who publish the books and stuff. Is that your box? So do you have also any like a particular themes you are particularly interested in talking about in your poetry as well, or is it the question of whatever comes to my mind?
Right now, I'm actually going through a transition from word of the book, because I spent maybe 2 to 3 years working on that book with the whole theme of tackling masculinity and sexuality and what it means to come out of the closet in the Filipino lens, living in the UK. That's the main box of my poems back in the day. And now that it's done, a huge chunk of that story no longer excites me anymore. It's not really relevant to me as who I am today. So I'm kind of transitioning into a different landscape. But it's interesting because I was talking to a few friends about the pamphlet. There's a bit of a branding thing happening, wherein if people know you as a poet who writes poems about masculinity, that's great because they respect you and they empathize with you. A little bit of the con in that is that you get branded as such, and everything you write after that gets immediately thought of as, oh, of course, this is of course masculinity. Of course it is. Like, this is you tackling that sphere again, and you're doing great. And I'm like, no, this poem is about a cat. And it's great. It's great.
And you're allowed to write about cats. Why not?
Exactly. And they're not saying no, you're not allowed to write about cats. But of course, they think immediately if it's a poem written by you, you're immediately being.
It's a very masculine cat.
Yes. No, not even. But like when I read the poem again through that lens, it makes perfect sense. So I'm learning from this as well, from this experience of having a pamphlet, because it adds another layer. And I understand audiences a little bit better now as well.
Yeah, this is another question I wanted to ask you. How does it like actually being a published poet, as in having actually someone looking at your poetry and publishing it? How what sort of impact did it have on the poetry written afterwards? So did you learn from the editors as well and people who actually looked at that as well?
Definitely, because I definitely learned from my editor, Amy Aker. She's a lot more, because I'm always described, and I agree with it, I'm a very emotional and very ethereal, kind of like hazy kind of poet. And she came in with my manuscript saying, we're gonna work on this, we're gonna make sure it's razor sharp. And that kind of meant cutting maybe 4 or 5 poems, which at the time I was like, why are you taking that away? I really like that poem. But actually, once you remove that from the manuscript, everything becomes clearer and sharper. And I get it, because she's doing it in service of my manuscript as well, and my development as an artist.
I suppose
So
it's very hard to sort of like, you know, gave up on this and that as a
yeah,
poet. It's like, oh no, not this one. I
exactly.
like it.
Yeah. Then she so justifies it in saying that this poem kind of works somewhere else, or it works as a different medium. Maybe it's more of a performance poem, or maybe it can be in collaboration to another form of art. So I get it. I get it. So in a way, I'm very sentimental, but at the same time, I get it. I'm also very cutthroat with my poems, which I like, I guess.
So you're working on the next poetry collection as
I'm working
well.
on poems. I don't want to jinx it right now because
My lips are sealed.
yeah, I wrote the poems in War Dove as just poems by themselves. I didn't think of them as like, oh, I'm gonna make a pamphlet out of this. I was just writing them because I was really sad. And I was having a conversation with another poet named Jeremiah Brown, or Sugar J Poet, that's his alias. And I was talking to him maybe a couple years ago. I was like, I have all these poems, Jeremiah. How in the world am I gonna turn this into something that I can sell? And he was like to me, you have all of these poems sort of all around your head. You are the common link to all of them, and you have this innate ability to create a narrative out of all of these poems, and you get to decide what story you want to write about them. And then that's sort of the mind frame I took, and then the pamphlet eventually came. But now that the pamphlet is out, I'm still stuck in that thought process of I need to write poems to create a narrative, to create a pamphlet, and I need to get out of that because that's not the organic way of doing it for me.
No, just write about cats.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to reading all those poems about cats.
Exactly.
And dogs, maybe.
And maybe dogs.
If people wanted to see more of your poetry, check what you're doing, are you on social media?
Yes, I am. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Troy Cabida, TroyCabida.
It will be linked.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And I'm mostly on Twitter and Instagram. I have a YouTube account, but I don't use it. I just post my videos there, but I'm not super active there.
Okay.
Yeah. And also have a blog as well, troycabida.com. There you go.
Excellent. We shall be checking, and we shall be linking all those below. So don't worry if you've lost it completely. What is he talking about?
Yeah. Thank you, Kate.
Great. So it was lovely talking to you. Congratulations once again about on your pamphlet being published in May. I hope another one about cats will be out soon.
Enough, yes. And thank you for having me. When I saw the Instagram post of you buying my book, I was like, that's fantastic. I know who Kate is.
No, seriously. Yeah, I bought the book.
Nice.
Check it out. Check it out. Go and buy it. It's very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you very much once again. Good luck. And thank you everyone for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this little chat. And please check Troy's poetry as well, because it's definitely worth it. And we'll back with you soon for more poetry. And for today, it's all from us. And bye.